Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Juventus continue to win games in Serie A, this time at the expense of Sassuolo. Where did Juventus go right? Did they struggle? What did Sassuolo do to try and stop Juventus from overpowering them? Don't worry, here are the interviews. We've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Juventus beat Sassuolo. So Sassuolo's attempt to hand Juventus their first loss of the season was a failure. In today's video, we're going to break down what Sassuolo did right, which kind of coincides with why Juventus struggled in the first half, and then how Juventus overcame the visitors. First, let's get to the lineups. We look at Juventus, more of a 4-3-2-1. Mario Mandzukic up front, Ronaldo in behind him, looking to drift out wide, looking to join him in attack. Dybala, more so on the right, looking to find pockets of space to get onto the ball, looking to add some creativity to this Juventus attack. No Miralem Pjanic, which means Emre Can was at the base, in wider areas in midfield. The shuttlers, as we like to call them, that like to bomb forward and join the attack, are Sami Khedira and Blaise Matuidi. Out in defense, Giorgio Chiellini and De Sciglio weren't match fit to play, so they went with Joao Cancelo. Bonucci joined Benassia in center back, and Alexandro started at left back. Then we get to Sassuolo, 4-3-3, more of a 4-5-1 for most of the game. They went with Kevin Prince Boateng up front, Juricic and Berardi looking to offer some creativity and direct play from wide areas. In midfield, Locatelli at the base, which means that Borabia and Alfred Duncan were the shuttlers as well. And when you look to the defense, they have Marlon, they have Ferrari at center back, and then out at fullback, Rogerio and Larola. This game was about how Sassuolo would stop Juventus from breaking forward. Juventus is at home. They're looking to continue their perfect form and translate that form into the Champions League, but it wasn't as easy as the scoreline may suggest, which it got narrowed towards the end of the game. But first, we have to start with what Sassuolo did right to stop Juventus and ultimately frustrate them in the first half. So we get to what Sassuolo did right. We have to look at their shape. They often dropped off into more of a 4-5-1 without the ball, and that was pivotal for them because what they wanted to do was obviously compress space that Juve had, but they also wanted to keep tight in wider areas because when you look at Juve's backline, or we look at their midfield in particular, not enough creativity there. Khedira likes to storm forward, Matuidi likes to storm forward, Emre Can is known more for his all-round. He's more of a all-round plays, more of a utility player, not much of a creator. When you think about the Juve midfield, besides Miralem Pjanic, who do they have to really set the tempo of games? Who do they have to play passes from deep? Who can make the difference? They drop off into their 4-5-1. Berardi often sitting out and just ensuring that nothing is really going down the left-hand side. He did a very good job on Cancelo for the on Alexandro for the most part. Juricic obviously down, and he has to move out wide and he has to deal with Cancelo as well. The midfield bank sits a bit deeper, and Locatelli in particular was the deepest midfielder, and this forced Juve into a tactical change because what they initially were 4-3-2-1, but what eventually happened was that Ronaldo pushed forward and they had Dybala sitting on Locatelli to ensure that he couldn't play passes out of the back. So when you think about that, what was the other option for Sassuolo to play and go forward? It was to play out the back from goal kicks, but Juve also ensured that they couldn't do that as well. They were brave. They tried to play through the press. Often at times they did leave them into nervy moments, but what they basically did was the center backs tried to split out. It would have Ronaldo and they would have Mandzukic present there. Locatelli would try to drop in. Dybala would follow in. And now here is the catch. If the ball is trying to push out wide to the left-hand side, what would happen there is that shuttler would come over. Chan would push onto his man, and Matuidi would stay onto his man. So Khedira would push out and block off Rogerio. On the other side, what would happen was that if the ball was pushed out wide to Larola, you'd have Matuidi push out there. You'd have Chan take his marker, and then you have Khedira stick onto his marker. So basically what happened was that they never really had an out ball. They struggled to play out the back. It took them 45 minutes to willingly play out the back, and that was shocking. And when they did do that, it did show one of their key moments of the game, more so the first half. And if they couldn't play out the back, they couldn't get Locatelli on the ball. Their key man here was Kevin Prince Boateng, who played as a central striker. And what he wants to do is drop into play and spring in Berardi, spring in Juricic, and that's his job. So when he does that, we often saw him try to get onto the ball, try to chest the ball down into Juricic at one point, but he couldn't get onto the ball. There was another opportunity where he pulled Mehdi Benatia out of position, and what happens is that he played the reverse ball into Rogerio, who pulled off Cancelo and drove into space down the left channel, but his cross was cleared. That was one sign of showing what he could do. There was another time where all he did was push off, chest the ball into Rogerio, who ended up pulling across Khedira, playing it to Duncan, who ended up switching the play to Larola. Larola pushed forward, but again, his cross wasn't good enough. They had opportunities through Boateng, who also did drop deeper. There was one time where he dropped off on Khedira, dispossessed him, and Dybala had to come back and forced him into a foul, and conceded a foul on him. But besides that, they really never got going. A lot of it was down through Boateng, but they kept their shape. They frustrated Juventus, and now we have to get into why Juve struggled in the first half, besides the fact that their press from the front couldn't force Sassuolo into goal-scoring opportunities. So when we get to Juve, it seems like a lot of teams are playing somewhat of a midfield diamond, and that was pretty much what this was in a nutshell. You had Dybala playing in the role in behind, obviously trying to deal with Locatelli. As the half wore on, he stopped really pressing Locatelli, who eventually had more influence on the game. And then you have the shuttlers trying to break forward, and you have Chan deep in midfield. But the big question was, how are they going to create chances? If Bonucci tried to step forward to try and be that outlet, what would happen is that one of the wide players in Juricic would step forward. Then you'd have Duncan push off, and they'd ensure that they cover that space there. So Bonucci's threat wasn't really that impactful. When you think about everywhere else, their chances came very thick and thin. A lot of it stemmed from just winning individual battles and breaking forward. When you have a midfield diamond, you're often ensuring that you dictate the midfield, you ensure that you dominate the center of the pitch, and then you have the fullbacks pushing forward to provide the width. Juve's threat, main source of creativity, was down those wide areas. But like I said, Alex Sandro was marked out of the game. Most of his influence was stopped by Berardi. So one of their big outlets was down the right through Cancelo. We saw in the earlier stages, ball is switched to Cancelo. What he's able to do is get across Duncan. He pushes forward, and then he plays the ball behind Borabia to Ronaldo. Ronaldo's about to set his shot going, but Rogerio comes across and he blocks his effort. Cancelo again also was able to push forward later on in the half, and Juricic wasn't closing him down, and his cross into the box was played to the far post for Larola, who awkwardly hit the ball towards his own post and cleared the line. So that was one big worry for Sassuolo as well. But besides that, they weren't really getting anything going. Ronaldo was struggling to have an impact on the game, and at times it felt like they were simply trying to just get him a goal. You think about one opportunity where it's Ronaldo just dropping off and sliding in between that space, and he picked up the ball between Berardi and Duncan and Borabia, slides it over to Alexandro. He breaks into the box, the cross just a bit too high. He jumps a bit too high. He jumps a bit too early and nods his effort over the net. There was another opportunity where he did get the ball, and it stemmed from Dybala dropping off a bit deeper, nutmegging Juricic, switching it out to Khedira. Khedira's cross ends up falling to Ronaldo, who ends up backheeling it to Matuidi, but his touch was a bit too heavy, and that cleared the lines as well. But when you think of it as a whole, they weren't really getting forward and creating enough chances. They weren't stretching the Sassuolo backline, besides when they pressed from the front, and that was a big issue. And then you have to think about Dybala, who never really got the ball between the lines, never picked it up and really caused any threat, placed Ronaldo or Mandzukic into dangerous positions. This is the role that he wants to play in. He's not playing out wide. He's not stifled out there, but another game this season where he doesn't get the job done, doesn't really create enough chances, doesn't have an impact on the game. And going into halftime, Juve were extremely poor and they needed to make changes. So then we get to the second half and how Juventus were able to run away with the game. They didn't change their shape initially, but what we did see was Sassuolo kind of drop off a bit deeper. We saw Juventus push their fullbacks forward. And one of the key things about Juventus in the first half was about Sassuolo in the first half was that Berardi and Juricic were doing a good job of trying their best to keep Cancelo and Alexandro from joining the attack. At the start of the second half, they weren't doing a good job there. We saw Cancelo eventually push forward. He ended up delivering a cross into the box. He was able to get a yard on. The ball goes through the box. It falls to Ronaldo, but then Marlon is there, and then the ball Ronaldo doesn't get a shot on target. We saw Alexandro push forward where Berardi was kind of tucked in narrow, and he gets to run at Lirola. He's able to play the cross into the far post for Mandzukic, who nods it into the path of Khedira breaking into the box, but Ferrari makes a big tackle that ends up leading to the corner kick that Ronaldo converts his effort. We think about Juventus, they kept pushing forward. Eventually Mandzukic was sacrificed. Douglas Costa came on, and then we saw more of a flat 4-4-2 where we saw Costa play from the right. We saw Matuidi kind of tuck into the left, and now we got to see more of Douglas Costa breaking forward, running at Rogerio, and that was pivotal. And then we saw more of Joao Cancelo as well pushing forward. We saw one time eventually after Juricic did come off for Di Francesco. What happened here is that Di Francesco's kind of tucked in, and what we end up having here is Cancelo's pushing forward. Chan slides the ball to him. He pushes forward, slides it to Douglas Costa, who's able to run at Rogerio, cut outwards, and flash across through the box. That's one good sign. We saw Cancelo break forward, getting the ball again from Chan. He ends up beating Berardi, beating Boateng, sliding in Ronaldo free down the left-hand side. But like many opportunities in the first half where he had got past Lirola and he was able to get into a good position but played a poor pass. He did the same thing there and missed his opportunity. But again, when we get to the second goal, it stems from a corner kick against the run of play. So it goes to show that Juventus still struggling to create chances from open play. What happens here is that it's Douglas Costa who gets the clearance, and he drags out Rogerio, and that leaves Lirola, and it leaves Lirola free back, and then it leaves the deep line playmaker back as well. And what happens there is that he's able to hold the ball up, slide Chan in, Cancelo and Ronaldo are able to break forward. The ball is slid into Ronaldo, and Ronaldo fires his effort in on goal. 2-0 for Juventus. But when you think about all the chances that Juventus created prior or following that goal, it all stems from them pushing forward, getting the ball out to Douglas Costa. He had a great combination with Ronaldo. He was running at Di Francesco. He was running past Rogerio. There's one specific moment where he gets past his marker, delivers across to the far post. Ronaldo all alone, unable to get his effort on goal. But when we think about it, for Juventus, direct playing, runners, a bit of pace to their attack, that changed everything. You could say all you want about having Mandzukic and Ronaldo up front, but they need wide players, and they can't solely rely on the fullbacks, and they need those wide players to be running at defenders in wide areas, not being tucked in like we've seen Douglas Costa and we've seen Cuadrado throughout the game. Bentancur eventually came on for Emre Can. We saw eventually Sassuolo make a few changes where they brought on Babacar to bring in a second striker up front. But the thing with them was that they were getting crosses into the box. There were a few chances that they did create against Juventus, and it's a warning sign for Juventus because they haven't really dealt with crosses into the box very well. They've looked susceptible to it. They conceded goals from that route on the opening day. They looked like they were struggling against it when they played Lazio, and you have to think about how are they going to get forward, because Juve eventually dropped into that 4-4-2. They weren't really closing down space like you'd expect them to, and what happened here is that Dybala obviously is trying to sit on the deep line playmaker, Ronaldo up front looking to break in on the counterattack, but they were finding space through Barabia. Barabia dropped off. He found Juricic earlier on when he was still on the field. Lirola was higher. He ended up delivering a cross that Boateng was unable to back back heel on goal. We think about another opportunity where Barabia delivers a cross from deeper position. Boateng misses it, but it falls to Di Francesco breaking in. Di Francesco fires his effort into the side netting. The goal also, it's Berardi, not closed down, finds that cross into Babacar in the box in the 90th minute prior to Douglas Costa being sent off. He nodded his effort past Szczesny. But when we look at this game as a whole, we have to look at Sassuolo dropping a bit deeper, playing through the press, although it was a bit risky and they should have possibly conceded a goal. They pressed, Juventus pressed, couldn't really breach them there. Sassuolo set off. Juventus struggling to find guile and creativity through central areas. Second half, bring on Douglas Costa. That changes the game. Berardi and Juricic allow Cancelo and Sandro to get more involved. And again, with Juve in this game, it was about bringing on the pace of Douglas Costa, but getting those fullbacks forward, getting wide deliveries in to Ronaldo. Eventually, it paid off. Ronaldo's on the goal score sheet now for Juventus, and we're going to see how much more he can influence this Juventus attack. They remain unbeaten, and who knows what lies next for them. But let me know what you guys think. Can Juventus end up winning the Scudetto despite some of the flaws that they have on their side? What about Sassuolo? Are they set for a top half finish? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.